October 4, 1903, in the Austrian town of Ried im Innkreis, in the family of a hereditary lawyer Hugo Kaltenbrunner, a boy was born, who was named Ernst. The Kaltenbrunner family were subjects of the Emperor of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, Franz Joseph Habsburg. Accordingly, they were brought up in the old German spirit. That is, they were staunch nationalists, and they managed to instill their beliefs in their son. Ernst Kaltenbrunner from his youth was imbued with the idea of German superiority of other nations. During his school and student years, he actively participated in nationalist organization of Austrian youth. According to some unconfirmed reports, young Kaltenbrunner met with Hitler back in the 20s. It is possible that these are just rumors. However, it is certain that Hitler subsequently and clearly favored his fellow countrymen. On the other hand, Kaltenbrunner had known Adolf Eichmann, the notorious activist of the final solution of the Jewish question, since his childhood. In his youth, he was interested in various spiritual and sport practices related to fencing and martial arts. In memory of these hobbies of the youth, several scars remained on his face. After completing a university course at the Faculty of Law, Ernst received a doctorate in jurisprudence, after which he practiced law in the Austrian cities of Salzburg and Linz. He often had to speak out in defense of nationalist militias. In this field, he showed his lawyering skills. In October 1930, Kaltenbrunner became a member of the Austrian branch of Hitler's NSDAP. In 1931, he was appointed district representative of the NSDAP in Upper Austria. In the same year, Ernst was accepted into the SS. His career in the party quickly went uphill. In 1933, Kaltenbrunner became the leader of the Nationalist League of Lawyers of the city of Linz. In July 1934, Ernst Kaltenbrunner, together with Arthur Sayce Inquart and Odilo Globochnik, tried to organize a rebellion, to be exact, coup d'etat, during which Chancellor Eldenberg Dollfuss was killed. The rebellion was suppressed and its organizers and active participants from the SS were imprisoned. However, they did not stay long there. Austria was under serious pressure from Berlin and Hitler's regime. Since 1935, Kaltenbrunner was considered the leader of the Austrian SS, in direct contact with Heinrich Himmler and his deputy Reinhard Heydrich. In general, it was indeed an interesting situation. A state criminal and one of the organizers of an unsuccessful coup attempt and the assassination of the Chancellor, without having spent even a year in prison, quietly travels around the country, supervising SS detachments and the Nazi underground. Moreover, he freely traveled to the neighboring Germany, where he received all the necessary instructions, organizational, informational, and of course, financial support. Just as easily he returned home to Austria. And it seemed that the new Chancellor Kurt von Scheschenheim was not able to do anything about it. In 1937, Kaltenbrunner was nevertheless arrested. Not everyone in the Austrian law enforcement agencies liked his glib and arrogant pro-German and openly Nazi activities. But as before, politics and the Nationalist League of Lawyers intervened in the matter. A few months later, the leader of the Austrian SS was again at large. By the end of 1937, everyone in the world already understood that Hitler's Anschluss, the annexation of Austria to the Nazi Reich, would still take place. Some in Austria and in the world hoped for the outside support, England or France or even Italy, to stand up for Austria's sovereignty. But these were unfounded hopes. British Prime Minister Chamberlain, and after him his French colleague Daladier, set a course to pacify Nazi Germany through minor, as they believed, concessions to Hitler. In particular, they were talking about Austria and part of Czechoslovakia. For the time being, a staunch opponent to the Anschluss was the Italian dictator and seemingly an ally of Hitler, Benito Mussolini, who had his own plans for Austria. But after the shameful for Italy war in Ethiopia and the moral and political support of Hitler in his colonial war, Mussolini no longer dared to object to Hitler's Bonapartism in Europe. In addition, the French rivals were already tied in blood in the war with Republican Spain on the side of the rebellious General Franco. On March 13, 1938, the Anschluss took place. The troops of Nazi Germany entered Austria when they were greeted with pomp by local Nazi and local SS militias, led by Kaltenbrunner. The Nazi leadership of Germany highly appreciated Kaltenbrunner's contribution. And if the Austrian aristocrat Arthur Seyss-Inquart, who had long been associated with the Nazis, was appointed head of Austria, Ernst Kaltenbrunner became the head of the Austrian SS and the police, in fact the second person in Austria. Kaltenbrunner received the rank of SS Brigadefuhrer, Major General, the post of police president Gleichschaftan of Austria, a cross, and already in April became a deputy of the German Reichstag. Kaltenbrunner led the process of accelerated Nazification of Austria. Under his direct leadership, the first concentration camp on Austria's soil was built, the infamous Mauthausen. And in the fall of the 28th, Kaltenbrunner already became an SS Gruppenführer, Lieutenant General. Kaltenbrunner's rapid rise still causes controversy and speculation among historians specializing in the study of the history of the Third Reich. His services to the NSDAP were also not moderate, but other Nazis had them too. Eichmann, for example. But Eichmann never managed to keep up Ernst, who, as we mentioned, was his friend from childhood and youth. Another interesting point, Kaltenbrunner did not enjoy the sympathy of most of the early Nazi leaders. Neither his bosses, Himmler and Heydrich, nor Göring and Rosenberg, and other leaders of the Third Reich, figuratively speaking, had any reverence for Kaltenbrunner. They of course appreciated and even respected him for his efficiency, resourcefulness, and organizational skills. But at the same time, they did not particularly trust and were even afraid of him. Kaltenbrunner's appearance in general gave the impression of a bouncer from a restaurant. He was 196 centimeters tall, athletically built with rough chopped facial features, disfigured by scars, and made the impression of a limited and narrow-minded person. However, the impression was deceiving. Those who knew him closely enough, and there were few of them, also knew that under this rough and gloomy appearance hid the mind of an intellectual and a very strong lawyer, which he later proved at the Nuremberg trials. He did not have many close friends, the already mentioned Adolf Eichmann and well-known Otto Skorzeny. It was Kaltenbrunner who introduced his friend Skorzeny to Hitler. However, the reasons for the Kaltenbrunner's rapid career and his influence in apparatus affairs are still unclear. Most likely, the main patron of the Nazi Ernst was Hitler himself. Even without being the head of the RHSA, main office of imperial security, Kaltenbrunner nevertheless participated in many meetings held by Hitler. Although Hitler obviously never showed any sympathy for Kaltenbrunner, he seemed to keep him a little at a distance. Most likely this was a tactical move on the part of Adolf Hitler. Obviously, he, Kaltenbrunner, should not be singled out in any way, but on occasion, the necessary hint should be given to whoever needed it. Most likely it was precisely such high patronage, and therefore trust that provided Ernst Kaltenbrunner with a special position in the German elite, not among the very first, but at the same time very influential. Even before the Anschluss of Austria, Kaltenbrunner was closely connected with the Reich intelligence services. In fact, as the boss of his friend Eichmann, Kaltenbrunner made a huge contribution to the construction and operation of concentration camps throughout Germany and the occupied countries. It was he who established the three main methods of killing concentration camp prisoners: gas, noose, and bullet. And he himself was present more than once during executions. In general, he was a fighter, by the nature of his irrepressible and fanatical character, a fighter against Jews, communists, anti-fascists, homosexuals, doubters, etc. In a word, a fighter with all the enemies of the Reich, and with everything that he considered evil for the Reich. People like Kaltenbrunner were valued by Adolf Hitler. They were his faithful, devoted dogs, ready to chew to death any of his enemies. Therefore, when in 1942 the British intelligence services, with the help of the local underground, eliminated Himmler's deputy and the head of the RSHA, Reinhard Heydrich, Hitler apparently had no doubt who should take this post. Judging by historical data, Himmler intended his own man to take this place, William Stocker, SS Obergruppenführer, State Secretary of the Ministry of the Interior. But for some reason, Kaltenbrunner was appointed. From January 1943, Kaltenbrunner officially became the head of the RSHA and Himmler's deputy. In June 1943, he received another rank of SS Obergruppenführer, After the appointment of Kaltenbrunner, the extermination of concentration camp prisoners, including Jews, intensified even more. Kaltenbrunner demanded from his subordinates greater efficiency in solving the problems. It is clear that these tasks were the destruction of Jews, Gypsies, Slavs, and everyone who interfered with the life of the Reich. Until the very end of the war, Kaltenbrunner kept under his control the entire sadistic machine of the Third Reich, designed to massively exterminate people unwanted or dangerous to the Nazi regime. He demanded the destruction of as many prisoners as possible, so that only those who were still capable of hard work were left. Back on April 20, 1945, Ernst Kaltenbrunner was present when Hitler awarded the Hitler Youth in his bunker. And the very next day, the seasoned Nazi left Berlin. However, American intelligence arrested the second person in the SS on May 12, 1945. Kaltenbrunner was hiding in the mountains, near the Austrian town of Alta See. He was identified by local shepherds, and accordingly they reported him to the burgomaster and he to the American search party. This is where some strange things came to light. It turned out that in addition to narrow specialists, for example, representatives of the intelligence services and military intelligence in the police circles of the Allies, few knew who Kaltenbrunner was. One of the most influential Nazi of the Third Reich and the organizers of mass murders and the Holocaust, for a long time managed to remain not a very noticeable figure in the world political situation. And only during the Nuremberg trials, the true role of one of the main SS men and the inexorable executioner of people began to clearly appear. However, Kaltenbrunner chose for himself perhaps the most reliable line of defense, which at first glance seemed primitive but in fact caused a lot of trouble for investigators and prosecutors. The essence of this method of a lawyer by training Kaltenbrunner was to deny everything. Everything, even the seemingly obvious facts. Even comrades in the party and in the dock, such as Goering and other Nazis, threw up their hands and laughed as they listened to the testimonial of their comrade. Of course, there was something to laugh at, although it was not really funny. No, it wasn't me. No, I don't know anything about it. I didn't sign anything. What signature? No, this is not my signature. It is either forged or it is a facsimile. It was Himmler who gave all the orders. I knew nothing about it. Gas chambers? No, I haven't heard anything about it. No, I have nothing to do with the construction of concentration camps. What Hess? Commandant of Auschwitz. I don't know any Hess. No, I didn't feel any hatred for Jews. I didn't wish harm to anyone. And so on and so forth. In the heat of the moment, Kaltenbrunner was so far as to say that he himself condemns Nazism and believed that crimes against people, of course, should be held accountable. But he had nothing to do with it. At the same time, Kaltenbrunner suffered 2 cerebral hemorrhages, and at one time he moved in a wheelchair. To what extent this was really the case or whether it was skillful acting, we will never know. But not a complete denial of his complicity in the crimes of Nazis and the SS, nor illness, did not help Kaltenbrunner to evade responsibility for his atrocities. On October 1, 1946, by the verdict of the Nuremberg court, Ernst Kaltenbrunner was found guilty of many atrocities and sentenced to death by hanging. On the night of October 15th, he, along with other 11 Nazis, was sentenced to death and was hanged. They say that before he died, he pronounced, "Have a good time getting out of this, Germany." With this, the harmful and terrible activities of the prominent Nazi and SS man, the world's villain, and the leaders of the many other villains ended.